We'll go ahead and get things going. So if you attended the Canva Tech Tuesday sessions, these are going to run pretty much the same way. So basically, we have 4 Seesaw Tech Tuesday sessions. Today is just a very basic getting started. And then you can see here the other dates and the topics for the other 3 sessions. You're welcome to attend whichever ones are best fit for you, whichever ones you're comfortable attending, and you'll earn a half hour of PD credit for any that you do attend. Notice on this first slide, I have a bit.ly down at the bottom. So you don't have to use that right now if you don't want to. You don't have to pull this up at the same time, but you might want to just kind of save that. It's also in the email that I sent everyone earlier, so you'll be able to access it that way. But there are some resources that are linked in that you may want to be able to get back to. So it's a good idea to make sure that you keep that accessible. All right, I also did link in on this first slide just a reminder of our Madison City core apps and programs. These Text Tuesday sessions that I've been doing are really focusing in on different core apps for us in Madison City. The first one was on Canva, which is our main creation app. And Seesaw is one of our curation apps just because it is so great at allowing you to collect student work and kind of create that portfolio space for students. But honestly, you could argue that Seesaw works really well in just about any of these areas. You can use it for creation. It gives students a voice, critical thinking. It can be an assessment tool. So there's really tons of these areas that Seesaw fits into. It's a really great tool to use for all sorts of things in the classroom. All right, so this resource that the bit.ly links to, you'll be able to click in to a slide that will kind of take you back through what we go through during each session, and any kind of resources that are linked in for that session, you'll be able to get back to it. Also, whenever I finish this getting started session, I will add the recording here on this session 1 slide. So if you need to go back to it, you can. And then I'll also send that recording out to anyone who signed up. So if there are people who are wanting to watch the recording back rather than being able to attend today, they can do that as well. So you'll be able to find that recording linked here after we finish. So this is just kind of a quick overview of what we're going to go through today. So we're going to really just the very bare bones getting started with Seesaw today. So talking about why Seesaw is such a great tool in the classroom, how you can log in and access it, and then sort of looking at the Seesaw resources that are already available in our elementary instruction website. And then I'm going to take you through that Seesaw teacher dashboard, everything that's there, and how you use it. And then we'll walk through just the basics of creating or finding an activity in Seesaw, all the learning tools that make it so accessible both for teachers and for students when you're completing activities on Seesaw. And then we'll look at kind of how the workflow looks of going between teacher to student when those Seesaw assignments are being completed and then graded and reviewed. And then hopefully at the end, you'll get a little bit of time if you would like to try it to go in and look at a student view. Kind of try it out as a student. If we don't get time for that, I will leave you with a code and show you how you can go in and play around with that if you want to be able to kind of see what it looks like from the student side. All right, so let's get it started. So as far as why Seesaw, why is it such a great tool? Honestly, there are tons and tons of reasons. I can kind of use my session plans to highlight what I think really the 4 biggest bang for your buck things about Seesaw are. Honestly, I think you'll see today when we do just the very basic getting started how accessible Seesaw is for all students, and especially for our very, very young students. So not only is it going to give an opportunity for those very young digital users to use technology in a way that's really meaningful and impactful, it's also just going to build those basic digital literacy skills too, which is huge. Also, the ability in Seesaw to access so many pre-made resources is fantastic. The content that they already have built into Seesaw is wonderful. And then also it allows us to share content within our district. And we'll talk a lot more about that in our next session. Also, there are a lot of other built-in tools features within Seesaw that really make a teacher's life easier and really impact instruction. And we'll get into a lot of those in the April 1st session. I'm really just looking at ways that you can utilize it to kind of do things that you don't feel like you have time for, like being able to have students complete something and then you can go back and look at what they did later. A lot of teachers use it for fluency practice and that sort of thing. It also has some great built-in assessment tools that are new this year that it didn't have before, that pull in AI to help do some things and make teachers' life a little bit easier. And then the fourth thing is that it's a really great communication tool, and not only as far as student to student or teacher to student communication, but it really allows the teacher to sort of build that classroom culture out even to parents and families and really connect in that way. So it's another really awesome thing about Seesaw. All right, so let's move into how you can access it. And you guys are welcome to kind of follow along with me and try it on your own screen, or if you just want to watch and then go back and try later, it's whatever works well for you. I will say I linked right here next to the number 1 on the agenda, the place that you can go on our elementary website to access all of our pre-made Seesaw resources. So that's another great place you can go if you want to go back and kind of see what else is there, or some other getting started things. But you can access Seesaw in a couple of different ways. It's actually on Clever. So if you're used to using Clever a lot, you can just go into your Clever account and you can click on that Seesaw icon. But you can also get to it just by going to seesaw.com and clicking that log in the top right, or you can do app.seesaw.me, and then that's going to take you to the place where you can select this I'm a teacher option, and then you're going to sign in with Google. We have single sign-on with Seesaw, so makes things a lot easier. So when you sign in, it's going to take you right in to your Seesaw classroom, and any classes that you have set up already in PowerSchool are going to automatically feed over. Now, for some people, that can be a little bit difficult because I know we do have a lot of classes listed, including like that behavior class and all that stuff. And so sometimes that can be tough, but you do just have to pick one that you want to kind of use, and then teach your students that that's the class that they're using for Seesaw. It's really hard to take that away because then it messes up our grades that are departmentalized, that do need to have those separate classes available, if that makes sense. So when you first go in, you may see the option to choose between your classes, but it should look something like this. So I'm going to kind of go through the dashboard now that we are logged in. So when you first get to your class, this is all the different options that you're going to see. So let's kind of walk through that. So I've just kind of got my little profile over here on the top left. There are some settings that you can play with if you go into this setting gear. I don't think that there's a ton that you're going to want to change other than the way it's already set up. But just to know that there are a few little things that you can like toggle on and off if you don't want to receive notifications or that kind of stuff in your account settings. Your messages area. This is where you're able to set up messaging to families if you want to communicate with families. We're going to talk more about that in one of our later sessions. You've got a link to your resource library, which we'll come back to that in a moment too. Up here is just kind of how you're filtering down what you're looking at. You are able to set up different folders in Seesaw, and we'll talk a little bit later about the difference between these teacher only or student and family folders versus the full class journal that's visible to everyone. And then you can kind of filter down. If you have things labeled by standards, it will let you filter down what you're seeing that way. And then this is just toggling between, right now we have a list view set up. You can also toggle to a calendar view. So that's just all this main stuff over here. So what you're seeing right now that's showing up is just my class journal and posts that have been approved to this class journal. That's just a test class that I have set up. All right, over here to the right, this is the area that you're probably going to end up using a lot more. So you can see your students here. Your guys' names are on here because I set up test student accounts for you to be able to try out here in a sec. Your students will automatically feed in. Like I said, they'll come in through your PowerSchool classes. So you'll be able to see your students here. When you click on a student, it's going to allow you to see their posts. It will pop up just what they have posted. So the journal is where things are going to show up that you have reviewed and approved to go to the class journal. So anything that's popping up here are things that you have posted to the class journal or that you've approved that students have created. It will show up here. It's kind of like the same as that wall that you get in Google Classroom. If you have any experience working with that. So next over here, we have activities. So activities is where we're going to be able to see anything that we have assigned to our students. You'll see anything show up here that's been assigned, and you can also click in to review those activities that have been assigned. And we'll come back and look at what reviewing looks like in a second when we get to workflow. You've got your progress tab here that will let you see how far along students are on different activities that have been assigned. And then you got your notification spot. Down here, you have a place to add students or add families. You shouldn't really need to add students, but you may want to add families. And we'll talk about that more in one of our later sessions when we look at the communication capabilities within Seesaw. All right, so up here, I'm going to click to the last thing we're going to look at really on the dashboard is our little wrench right here. If you click that, that's going to take me to all of my class settings. And so this is where I can kind of go through and choose different things like the theme, the class icon, the student sign-in mode. You're not going to want to change that. Mine's changed right now because this is a test class and we're not using single sign-on for it. But single sign-on will be set up for you and your as far as your student mode. And you can just kind of scroll through here and see different things that you can change around in your class settings. One big thing that you may want to know how to do in your class settings is this manage teachers option. One really powerful thing about Seesaw is that it can be shared between teachers. You can work as collaborators. So if you want another teacher to be able to also see your students' work and kind of collaborate with you on that, you can just put their email address and invite them to join your class. So that's another really cool thing that you can do. The last thing I didn't talk about is this add button on the dashboard, and that's going to kind of take us into our next part. So now that we've seen just an overview of what all is on the dashboard, we're going to go into how you can actually add activities for your students to complete and what that looks like as far as the different tools and features that you can use to make the activity and that students use to complete their activities in Seesaw. Before I go to that really quick, I want to go back here to our resource slide and just let you know that there is a really helpful resource that's linked here that's called Teacher Dashboard and Tools. It's a handout that you can print out. So I know I kind of quickly went through all of those pieces, but if you need to revisit what everything on the Teacher Dashboard is and what it does, this is a really great handout that kind of is a reminder for you of that. And the second page of it is what we're about to look at, that activity creation screen and all the different tools that are there that you can use to create activities for students and that they can use to complete their activities. All right. All right, so let's go in like we're going to add an activity. So you've got your green add button right here, and there are a few options. You can just add something to the student journal. Now, if you're wanting to make like an announcement or you just want to share a resource with students so that everyone can see it and access it, then you may want to just use the add to student journal option. Probably more often than not, you're going to be wanting to actually create an activity that you want the students to complete. So more likely you'll be going to assign activity or create activity or assessment. I'm going to go into assign activity because we can still get to the create activity or assessment from there. But if we go to assign activity, that's going to actually take me into my library. So now I'm in the Seesaw Resource Library. You can see here there are multiple options. Now, I'm not going to get way deep into the resource library right now because our next session really looks in depth at all the things that are available to you in the library, but just kind of something to know that there are already tons of activities built in here. So right now I'm in my library, so that's going to be activities that I have either created or I've saved that I found from Seesaw that I've saved to my library. Before I go into creating an activity, I will say something that is good to know for getting started. When you go into the Seesaw library, you see that they have things, all of the Seesaw content that's created through Seesaw is organized really well in their library. And one really, really good place to start if your students haven't used it before, or if you're brand new to using it too, this Seesaw Essentials category or collection. When you go into that one, it's going to kind of, one of the first things that comes up is this Seesaw Tools 101. And those are great lessons to start with if you really just have no idea where to start with your students. These lessons take them through each of the different Seesaw tools, and kind of helps them learn how to utilize each one of the tools. So especially for our really young students who are going to be using this for the first time, this is a great place to start with just some really easy short lessons that teach them how to use the different tools within Seesaw. Okay, now, like I said, there's tons of content already in the library. So more often than not, you may be able to find what you need already built in the library, or you may be using something in our school and district library that has been created. But I am going to actually kind of take you through what it looks like to create an activity, just because I want you to see all those tools that are available to you and kind of how to navigate them, both from the teacher view and from the student view. So when you're creating an assignment, when you're creating a brand new blank assignment, this is the screen you're going to be taken to. You name your activity. And then down here, this student response template, this is really important because this is kind of deciding how students are going to be able to respond to that activity that you are posting. If you create it from scratch, then you can completely design what that activity is going to look like, what type of response you want students giving, even from slide to slide. You can upload a file, like if you have, say, a PDF of a reading passage that you want students to respond to, or you have maybe it's a math fluency energizer or warm up that you want to post that students are going to be working with. You can upload pictures, you can upload PDFs, you can upload something from your drive as your activity, and then students can respond to it. Either if you use the student choice option, students can respond to that any way that they choose, or you can kind of keep them more focused in by making it a video response, making it a voice reflection. You can have them do a screen record, a text reflection, or a note. And then also down here, we have some assessment options. You can also do auto-graded assessments with Seesaw, and we're going to get more into that in our later sessions. So I'm not going to talk too much about that. I'll be honest, I've only used Seesaw in certain different scenarios. I haven't used it as much as some of our classroom teachers who use it like every day. So they may tell you something different. But when you're creating an activity for students, I think it's honestly easier just to start with create from scratch, because then you can really do whatever it is that you want with it. So I'm not going to start a blank activity right now. I kind of started a little sample one earlier, and I'm going to pull that one back up and kind of finish it out with you guys to show you all the different tools that you can use to set up an activity. So this is one that I started earlier. When you start an activity, you can save it at any point. You don't have to assign it as soon as you create it. You can just save it, and you can go back to it and keep editing it. So this is just one that I created and saved. I'm going to click my little ellipsis or my 3 dots down here, and I can choose to edit the activity. All right, so now that I'm in the edit window, I can click back into my template that I was working on. And this was just a quick little example that I kind of started working on. Say if we've had our students read a story and we want them to reflect by telling us what happened in the beginning, middle, and end of the story. So I'm going to really quickly kind of walk through these different tools that you have available to you and how they might be most useful when you're creating activities for your students. So right now you can see I'm in the teacher view. I can also preview it as a student, and we'll do that in just a second. Over here on the left is where you have your menu of all the different tools that you can use. So you've got your text tool, which is just going to simply create a text box for you, just like these other text box that I have created. Once you create a text box, you get some options when you click those three dots. Of course, you have like some style options, all that kind of stuff. But one thing that's really helpful, I think, is you have this ability to lock text box in place. So like this one, I'm going to unlock it so I can show you. But this one you can see I'm locking all of the text box in place because I do not want that to change or be messed with at all. If I just lock the size in place, then I can keep it in its place, but the students can still edit the text inside of it. But I'm going to lock that completely in place. And then there are a few other things that you can add here as well that you can kind of play around with the text box. Also, it's really helpful to be able to duplicate. So I was going to kind of show an example of that. So say I need to add my what happened in the end over here. I can click here and just duplicate that text box, pull it over, then add that part. This one down here is a shape that I added, so I can just duplicate it as well and put it right there. And now I have all three of my response spots for my students. There's this record tool. This one is going to allow students to record their entire screen and also their audio. So if you want them to respond in that way, that's what you can do with the record tool. Under photo, you've got the ability to add a photo, add a video, or upload a photo from that one. This box down here, in my opinion, is the one that's most helpful when you're designing activities. So from this one, we've got this option to add questions. I'm not going to mess with questions too much right now because we're going to talk about assessments later in one of the later sessions. You've got your AI assistant here, which is really cool. We're going to talk about more in a later session too, but that's where it lives. And then here is frames. We're going to come back to that one in just a sec. Flex cards and Read With Me are some other kind of more advanced tools that are really neat that we are going to get into in other sessions, but not in our getting started one. So I'm going to come back to frames. Frames are really helpful when you are setting up an activity for your students. So with frames, it kind of gives them exactly how you want them to respond. So let's say for this question, you are wanting them to use their voice to answer the question. So, I mean, imagine our kindergarten students, we're wanting them to be able to answer it, but also in a way that's not frustrating to them. So we might want to do a voice record. So you click that. Then you can move it down into this box, space it however you want. Now, I'm going to preview as a student really quick so you can see how that works. So from the student view, with it being set up like that, they're going to be able to click that. So now it's recording. You can see up here in the red bar that it's recording what they're saying. And when they get finished, they can either click right here in the big box or click right here that they're done. And that's going to save what they recorded. So okay, so that's how that works. So it's going to record their response, and then you would be able to listen to that when they submit it. Another really cool thing that you can do with audio, down here in our three dots, you also see where you can add shapes, you can adjust your background, you can add links, or you can add voice. And so you see where I've done that up here. You can add directions to go in your activities that you are actually saying to students instead of them having to read what's on the screen if you think that's needed. So for example, if I'm wanting to add directions to help with these different questions, I can click that, click record voice. What happened in the beginning? And hopefully you guys can hear that. Sometimes when you play something on Google Meet, you don't always hear it, but. And I can put that here. I can make it, resize it a little bit smaller so it's not taking up so much space, and then stick it right there. I want them to be able to click and hear those directions. Also, I've said a minute ago, you have that shape option here. That's how I got just the square boxes. So if you just want to create like a space or a shape on the screen, you can use that. And you've got the background option that you can use to change the color or the look of the background. Now, also another thing that is really helpful that our young students can do to respond in a Seesaw activity is they can annotate or draw. So if you're wanting them to draw the answer to it, I'm going to preview as a student again. And then if I'm supposed to draw the answer here, I can use one of the drawing tools down here and draw my answer. All right, so once you have your activity designed exactly the way that you want it, that green check mark is going to allow you to actually save your activity. You can assign a standard to your activity as well as you want to, if you want it to track standards and kind of let you see your students' growth on particular standards, which is pretty cool. But we'll save it. And then when you're ready, you can click this assign button, and that's going to assign that activity to your students. All right, so I want to show you really quickly what that kind of looks like from the teacher side once you've assigned something. So, all right, so I'm back on my teacher dashboard now, and I'm under activities. I did not actually assign that one I just showed, but I'm going to show an older activity that I assigned previously. So I'm going to click review, and that's going to let me see anything that has been submitted for this activity that I assigned. So you can see here all the different students, and I can see that there's one here that needs to be reviewed. So I can click in to review this. So when you're reviewing a student activity, you have multiple options. You can like it, you can add a comment, you can add notes. This little folder is very helpful to know about. You can choose where this activity is going to go once it's approved by changing the folder it goes into. So for example, if this is something that you don't want the entire class to see, you just want that student and their family to be able to see it, then you can put it in the student and family folder. Or if you just want yourself to be able to see it, you can put it in the teacher folder. All right, now I can see here that this student did not complete the activity, so I may want to send it back. So I can choose to send it back, I can approve it, or I can delete it. So I'm going to click that send back, and then that's going to send that activity back to that student to finish up. All right, guys, and it is 3:39. It's already just about time for us to be finished. But I do want to kind of give you the option, if you want to be able to go into this test class that I have created and kind of play around from a student view just to see what that looks like, to go in and use those different tools to complete an activity. I'm going to pull up, let's see if it'll work the first time. Yay, it did. All right, so I pulled up a code that you can use to enter this class as a student. So if you want to be able to go in and try out one of these activities from a student view, basically all that you need to do is go to that app.seesaw.me. So you're not going to log in in your actual teacher login for this since you're practicing as a student. So it's app.seesaw.me. And then from there, you would select student. And then this is the code. So JTMSBL. So you'll select student. You'll choose that you are using a code. And then JTMSBL. And that code's going to expire in an hour. So if you try it later, it won't work. But if you don't have time to hop on and try that now, and you want to be able to go in and try out from the student view later, then just send me an email, and I will send you the new code so that you can access that. But if that's something that you want to do, I have this really simple all about me activity assigned in my test class, and it will give you the opportunity to kind of go through and try out using some of the different tools, like taking a photo, using the draw tool, recording a video, just so you can kind of see what it looks like for students to move through a Seesaw activity and complete it. And all right, I went 1 minute over, so sorry for going over just a little bit. Hopefully that was helpful. Again, make sure that you grab the bit.ly if you didn't, so that you can access all of those resources that were linked in. One resource that I didn't mention is this image shortcuts document. That's really helpful if you want to be able to put the actual images of the icons in your instructions. It shows you how you can type the text shortcut that will make these actual icons appear in the instructions when you actually publish it. So that's a helpful thing that some people like to do. All righty. Well, I'll stay on for just a sec. If anybody has any questions that they want to ask about the stuff we've talked about with getting started. And if not, hopefully you guys will be able to join us again on the 25th when we look a lot deeper at everything that is available to us in the Seesaw Resource Library. All right. Thank you guys for joining. Hope y'all have a good afternoon.